Thank you very much. Mr. Ridley Thomas.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the committee, I'm presenting AB 2021. This would explicitly allow for international election observers to have access to polling places and election observation sites that are open to the public. At this point, I came across this bill when in a previous role I had the occasion to visit the state of Colorado and observe their election to look at voting innovation tools, early voter registration, and vote centers and the like. And the National Conference of State Legislatures happened to be headquartered in Denver and indicated that California was one state that did not explicitly permit election observers from monitoring the election. So we came up with what has now become AB 2021, and we think it's a smart tool for democracy and to encourage mutual cooperation between foreign jurisdictions, that is, out of the country. And we would respectfully request your aye vote.
It's been moved and second. Okay, fine. Is there any other support for the bill? Is there any opposition? Okay, members have any questions? Okay. Mr. Ridley Thomas, with your bill I'm recommending a support position. It clarifies our state law to permit international election observers. Obviously, voting is a constitutional right. Allowing officials from other nations to visit and observe our process only benefits other nations in their efforts to develop a democracy similar to ours. California law allows a broad public access for observing state elections. So international observers already have the ability to observe elections in the state, but expressing it affirmatively is important to avoid any confusion. So I'm recommending a support position for your bill. Roll call.
The motion is do pass. Weber?
Aye.
Weber, aye. Harper?
No.
Harper, no. Travis Allen?
No.
Travis Allen, no. Gordon? Lowe?
Aye.
Lowe, aye. Mullen?
Aye.
Mullen, aye. Nazarian?
Okay, the vote is 3-2. We'll place the bill on call.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Chair.
much,
Members of the
Mr.
committee.
Thomas, Ridley Thomas. Okay, do we have any other author in the audience? Mr. Thurman, please call Mr. Thurman in, please. Uh, 2517, item number 6 on the agenda.
I'll look for it. I can start out.
Okay, Mr. Thurman, item number 6, 2517.
Good morning, and thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. It's an honor to be before you to present AB 2517. This bill would lower the voting age to 16 and 17 in school board elections. We believe that taking this action will actually create engaged voters. It will allow our young people to become voters for life. This is a bill that has been tried and proven true in other jurisdictions. We think that it has obvious benefits for giving those who are most directly impacted by educational policies a chance to have a voice in how those policies get set by electing those individuals. We know that the notion of giving 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds the right to vote is one that may not be well received by many, but we think that you'll hear today reasons for why it should be and can be, and why it can promote successful, engaged California voters. You'll hear from some young people from Berkeley High School, who I'm honored have joined me from our district, who are more than just witnesses. They are co-authors of this bill. They have largely researched and written this bill. And I appreciate their commitment to civic engagement and their desire to help be a part of the process of civic engagement. I ask that you hear their arguments, that you weigh the merits of their argument, and if you see value in their arguments, that you give them your vote. But if nothing else, I ask that you welcome them in the spirit of civic engagement that they are demonstrating. And I'm pleased to turn it over to my co-authors, who I've invited to be a part of every step of this process, because no matter the outcome of today's vote, I believe that they're gaining something that will be valuable for them when they become legislators or whatever else it is that they choose to do. I'll turn it over to my co-authors.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair.
Good morning.
Vice Chair Harper, and esteemed members of the committee. My name is Jane Hood. I'm a 17-year-old at Berkeley High School. I've lived in the Berkeley Unified School District since I was 5 years old. I understand and experience the issues that we as students face far more than the parents who send their children to private school, adults who live in Berkeley who do not have children. I understand these issues even more than my own parents, all of whom, unlike myself, get to vote for school board representative. The first time we cast a ballot is when you're at the age of 18. But 18 is a time of change. Most 18-year-olds have just graduated from high school, moved to a new location for college or a job. But at 16, we are still in the community of which we have grown up in. If this bill were to pass, 16-year-olds will be voting about things for the first time that they care about, unlike 18-year-olds who are new to the community and may not understand the issues that the district is facing. Decisions made by the school board directly affect students, and they directly affect students, and therefore we have a vested interest in and a unique insight in electing the right school board directors who will make positive change in our district. At 16, you're entering the last 2 years of high school and making vital decisions about your future. 16-year-olds can legally hold jobs, drive, pay taxes, and even be tried as adults. There are important age-based restrictions on things like consuming alcohol, driving, and smoking cigarettes. But voting is fundamentally different from all of these mentioned before. Studies have shown that voting does not utilize the part of the brain associated with impulsiveness. When you vote, you use a part of the brain unrelated to the impulsive prefrontal cortex, which is associated with younger people being underdeveloped. This means we are capable of making informed decisions about our local politics. Furthermore, voting is a positive action we want all Americans to participate in from a young age and for their whole life. This legislation will be fundamental in creating a generation of civically engaged youth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Samelia Rogers, and I am 16 years old. Cities with lower voting age for school board have experienced the benefits. In Tacoma Park, Maryland, the voting age was lowered to 16 for all local elections. As a result, 16 to 18-year-old voter turnout in that election was 3 times higher than the average adult voter turnout. Research shows that voting is habit forming, and people who voted in the past election are more likely to vote again. This legislation presents an opportunity to put youth of all backgrounds on track to becoming lifelong voters. As a mixed-race female, I see this bill as an opportunity to help more people cast a ballot and get involved in politics. Everyone grows up in a different environment, some in which have the opportunity to talk about politics, and others where it's their least concern, others where they can't focus on political enfranchisement. The heart of this bill is the fact that we have the opportunity to integrate students of all backgrounds. The act of enfranchisement is a great thing. We have a platform in which we can enfranchise and educate youth in a reliable and empowered way. Through education, each student will graduate with an understanding of voting and enfranchisement. BUSD School Board unanimously passed a resolution to support this bill, as well as our City Council last night. Our elected officials believe this is the right idea for our community, and we believe that our city, among others, should be given the opportunity to amend their charters to do so. This legislation has the potential to increase voter turnout and youth engagement in government. If I, as a young adult, had the right to vote for school board directors, I would be able to voice my opinion, speak as an individual, and be an empowered being. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay. Any other persons in support? I'm going to unfortunately have to leave to go do a presentation in another committee. But I will turn this over to my assistant. I hate to leave in the middle of this presentation. It's not a reflection Vice Chair. Yeah, turn it over to the Vice Chair. I should be back shortly. Thank you.
Hello,
Those wishing to add on, please state your name, organization, and position.
my name is Renee Revalorio Keith. I'm also with Vote 16. I live in Berkeley, and I'm in support of this bill.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Alejandra Leon. I am 17. I'm also a Berkeley High student, and I am in support of this bill.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Elijah Leidecker. I'm 16. I go to Berkeley High, and I support this bill.
Thank you.
Hi, Derek Lennox on behalf of the San Francisco Unified School District in support.
Thank you.
Hi, Carrie Sakimoto with the Green Lighting Institute in support.
Thank you. Those wishing to speak in opposition, please come forward.
May I sit?
Please come forward to the desk.
Well, I was going to say Madam Chair, so.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, members, good morning. Thank you very much. Nancy Chidas Espinosa with the California School Boards Association. I am very happy, first off, to see students here. I think this bill is an excellent teachable moment. It's a case study, frankly, on how we can agree on the goal of increasing voter turnout and civic engagement, but unfortunately not agree on the best path to get there. So CSBA is in opposition to this bill for various reasons, but I think the first is the potentially insurmountable one that we're most concerned about. So I'd like to back up first and tell you that CSBA has a long tradition of supporting civic engagement, and we are committed to improving and strengthening that across our state. But despite the laudable intent of this bill, once our teenagers actually become voters, the conversation changes. Right now, we can have mock elections, we can have discussions, we can do all sorts of things in which we're talking about real-world issues, and that is an appropriate educational activity. Once we are having that conversation with actual voters, that becomes a political activity. Carried out with public resources on public time. And that is an obstacle that I frankly don't see how we get around. So we would actually fear that this bill will limit our ability to engage in this type of activity. And to be very specific, since the bill would only apply to school board elections, you could argue that students could talk about all sorts of elections and just avoid talking about school board, but respectfully I find that very unrealistic, that when we are trying to engage students in a conversation and to motivate them to act, that we could avoid the one topic on which they could actually participate, which is their school board. So that's a grave concern to us. School boards and school districts across the nation, across the state, already have difficulty monitoring the appropriateness of the political speech, staying on the right side of that line that happens in classrooms. This would really put us in a very untenable situation. So that's the first concern. The second is the area of inequitable treatment. So I understand that the bill builds on an area of existing law, so that niche with charter cities that have some control already, according to statute, over school districts. But by extending it this way, we're really presupposing that a non-educational entity is better equipped than a local educational entity to make decisions about the best way to teach civic engagement. And that is just something that we would fundamentally disagree with. Secondly, because the bill specifically authorizes the non-educational entity to pass along the additional costs of the election, which will be significant, to the local educational agency, it's also empowering this charter city to make decisions about our budget, to impose things. So without question, there would be resources taken away from what we would otherwise spend on our local our local control accountability plans, meaning the educational goals that we want our students to attain. Another area of inequity is that the bill effectively creates three classes of voters in the state of California. Right now, we have one class of voter, and we still deal with issues of voter confusion. This bill would create your full-fledged 18-year-old voter. It would create your 16 and 17-year-old who can vote in some elections, and it would create your 16 and 17-year-old who cannot vote. So, let's consider for a moment the degree of voter confusion that will result despite all of our best intentions at voter education. And, sadly, we know that voter confusion equals decreased turnout, not increased turnout. And that's a reality that we have to contend with. As your bill analysis rightly points out, this extension of the power of charter cities would be built on top of a patchwork of local educational agencies which are generally not drawn within the confines of municipal boundaries. So as the analysis points out, what the case would be in Los Angeles Unified, in the city of Los Angeles, the bill would create a great deal of confusion. There are some unresolved issues here. So, for example, when more than one charter city would be authorized to make this decision for a school district, the bill doesn't clarify who gets to make that decision. If one charter city decides, yes, 16 and 17-year-olds should be able to vote, and another is opposed to it, there is no clarity in the bill about how that would be resolved or who gets to make that decision. And clearly, because we have different layers of government, and charter cities are 1/4 of the cities in California, and they tend to be in the most populous areas, this would frankly cause chaos across the state in terms of determining who can make this decision. Lastly, I want to talk about age of majority. So there has been a trend in the legislature lately in the discussion of age of majority, most recently with the tobacco legislation, and scientific evidence was cited there as well, and the legislature as a whole determined that that not only 16 and 17-year-olds, but even 18-year-olds were not mature enough to make decisions that would impact just themselves. This bill, in turn, would allow 16 and 17-year-olds to make decisions that would impact the livelihood of must be about 1 million people who work at our public schools in the state of California. The figure cited in my letter for 850,000 is actually only represented employees, those in bargaining units. And, with all due respect to the 16,000 residents of Tacoma Park, Maryland, this is quite an experiment to conduct on a state level in a state as large and diverse as California. My organization is concerned about preserving local control. So if, as I'm hearing, the city and school district in Berkeley are willing and able to do this, and they are completely coterminous, meaning they would not be imposing decisions on anybody else, CSBA would not be opposed to that at all. But the idea of imposing this on other jurisdictions who have other ways of addressing this important issue is something that we are concerned with. And I think that's all I have for now. So we respectfully ask for your no vote.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members and staff. Marta Alvarez on behalf of the Association of California School Administrators. AXA also respectfully opposes the bill for the same concerns that Nancy mentioned. We at AXA, we are completely supportive of any effort in California to increase civic engagement, voter participation, both at the young level and also in just 18-year-old and older. Secretary of State Padilla has done a lot of work over the past 2 years in really trying through the legislature and also efforts at the Secretary of State's office to trying to engage voters at a much more comprehensive way, trying to allow voters to sign up on register online, trying to have more public forums to talk about the importance of elections, democracy, and who we elect to represent the public's interest. So we at AXA, we're completely supportive of efforts to support students' engagement in the classroom. It can be done through curriculum curriculum through mock trials, mock hearings. We're really focusing on the K-12, not just at the high school level when students have government classes. So we believe it needs to be integrated in what we do in public education, starting from the elementary school grades. The two concerns that I'll just highlight that Nancy also referred to is the conflict with Government Code Section 8414, which states that it is unlawful for an elected state or local officer, including local appointee, employee, or consultant, to use or permit others to use public resources for a campaign activity. We're concerned that this bill would be considered, if we're having school students somehow able to participate in local governing elections, that it would be considered that public resources are being spent on a campaign for a school board. There's also questions about would a school student be allowed to run for office as a school board member if they're 16-year-olds. But I think the other subtlety about the bill that it is not addressed is regarding the school districts, that they cross over multiple jurisdictions oftentimes. So how do we address a school district that might be overlapping with multiple cities? So with that, those two particular concerns, we must remain opposed at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opposition from the audience? Any Me Too's? Okay. So give your name and your position, your organization you represent and your position.
Jill Levine. I'm representing the California Association of Clerks and Election Officials, and it is a position of concern. We support the intent of the bill, but we're very concerned about how to administer this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Any questions from the members? Yes, Mr. Allen.
Thanks for bringing this forward, Ms. Thurman. I do really appreciate the students coming here. I thought your presentations were both enlightening and enjoyable all at the same time. So I think you guys are going to be great voters when you vote. I would contend there's a lot of reasons to leave the voting age at 18, but without going into great depth, I would simply say that the California Constitution reads very clearly that a U.S. citizen 18 years of age and a resident in the state may vote. So clearly this is going to end up being a constitutional issue. So this is a question to the author. Mr. Thurman, I am adamantly against giving the right to vote to anyone that is below 18 for the same reason that 18-year-olds do not have the right to enter into contracts or do a lot of other things in our society. That this kind of the demarcation line. I think recently there was a bill to raise the smoking age from 18 to 21. So this is not really it's not a partisan issue. It kind of falls on both sides. People like to say that at 18 you're old enough to do this, but not that. I would contend that below 18, because you're not able to enter into contracts, you really should not also have the right to vote. Once you get the right to enter into contracts on your own 2 feet, then clearly you are a citizen of the country and should have all the other rights as well, or at least the other rights that we've prescribed so far. But that's really just my personal take on the matter. Really, the issue at hand is that this is a constitutional issue, and it would appear to me that your bill would need a vote of the people. So, would you like to address that?
I would. Thank you, Mr. Allen. I know that my co-authors also have some thoughts as they've been really researching this and wrestling with this for many, many months. I would say to the issues of age of 18 and the issues of being able to contract, I certainly appreciate the logic. Respectfully, I would differentiate the issues that you've raised in the analogy about smoking going from 18 to 21. In that matter, there were very specific trends that have been cited that the younger that someone smokes, the longer that they might smoke and the greater intensity of their health impacts. You could make the same argument for this bill using that same line of argument that you've raised, that the earlier that a person votes, the more likely they would continue to vote. This bill simply says that charter cities could make the decision. All we're doing is giving a charter city the ability to make the decision on how they think their young people should be able to vote or not. As it relates to the issue of contracting, again, it's a great point. It made me think of one thing, and I know that that's probably the crux of all the arguments of opposition here today. Should someone younger than the age of 18 be able to vote? Are they ready to take on the responsibilities of voting? I have to be honest, the first thing I thought of as I heard those thoughts, I thought of my grandparents who emigrated here as teenagers, younger than 16. who, with nothing, who, working their way up by cleaning people's homes, raised 9 children very successfully and allowed them to have healthy, productive lives, mind you, all lifetime voters. And I thought, what more important task could anyone have other than having to raise a family from nothing when you yourself are younger than 16? Not every 16-year-old is ready to vote, but neither is every 18-year-old or every 21-year-old. I believe that it is valid to give 16-year-olds the right to vote, and we have 16-year-olds who may not legally be able to enter into contracts because they've been raised in systems like foster care, and they have to emancipate and become adults like my brother has and many of my family have had to do. They have to make life-changing decisions and demonstrate that they are capable of doing so.
Okay, any other questions?
If I may,
Okay.
If I may, Madam Chair, I really appreciate that. And, clearly, it's not, for me, it's not really a question of individual maturity or maybe even a question of aggregate maturity. I certainly understand that many people, regardless of their age, have taken on massive responsibility and successfully completed that. I would also contend that you're correct that the earlier you start any activity with regularity, the greater propensity you probably have to continue that activity throughout your life. Nonetheless, the real question for me, personal feelings aside, really is this would appear to be a constitutional issue for both charter and non-charter cities. And directly to that, do you see that as an issue with this bill moving forward? Because as I take a look at it, this is something that will have to be decided by the people on the ballot.
Yeah, I believe on the letter that was sent out by Josh Daniels, which I think you all committee members have, it states in the California Constitution that an 18-year-old who's a citizen of California may vote, but it does not say that only 18-year-olds can vote. So I think in the legal interpretation that lawyers that Josh has shown us have said that does leave some jurisdiction to the state of California to determine that.
Mr. Harper.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I want to thank the author for bringing this up because I think the issue of youth civic engagement is very important. And I was highly involved myself because I know that civic engagement is not limited to voting itself. I participated as a campaign volunteer for several candidates, even at high school age, interned for my local assemblyman, and participated in a volunteer organization, a high school organization called Junior State or Junior States of America that promotes young people getting involved in learning how democracy works and how to engage each other in thought talks and discussions and debates on timely issues. And continue to be a supporter of that organization. Also, as a former school board member myself, who was elected at age 24, not long after being at Huntington Beach High School myself, I have some, obviously some strong thoughts about this issue. When I started on the school board, probably about 95% of the faculty at my home school was still teaching, and that was certainly an interesting experience, which kind of brought forward one of the issues that was brought up in some of the testimony. But I do want to ask kind of two levels of questions. One, and if you can hold on in terms of your answer, is why just targeting school boards? Because I think that there was a question of equity that was brought up on why would this be only for one kind of an election? Why not water district, state legislature, Congress, or city council, etc.? Why just targeting school board members? The other issue is a lot more about, I think, this comprehensive issue that Assemblyman Allen was bringing up about what is the meaning of adulthood. Should we be having a comprehensive discussion about this? I think Dan Walters wrote an excellent column that was saying maybe this discussion should be had comprehensively when we're moving smoking age up. When for health care, your responsibility only comes after age 26. Driving, is it 16 or is it 15 and a half or is it a different age? All these different questions that we're sorting through, we're kind of not dealing with this comprehensively as an age of what does it mean to be an adult. And kind of as a part of that question, the last part of my question, which I have not heard yet, which is very important to me, which is the why 16. And the converse of that is, why not 15? Why not 14? Why not 13? Why not 12? I haven't heard anything to articulate why this isn't a slippery slope that we would revisit time and time again. I mean, granted, as someone who's pro-life myself, I'd love to give a voice to the unborn in terms of the issue of the right to life or abortion. But that, I think, is a very serious question to really be able to have, is why, if it's not 18, why 16?